Good evening. Welcome back to Smart Trucking Live again this evening. Glad you all could join us. Scott Kuhn, hello from Illinois. Little Trucker Bear from Central Kentucky, hello, sir. There's Stabs, hello from Finland. Man, that's a hike from here. Heavy Haul Nick, hello from Pittsburgh. Little Trucker Bear, he's doing good. Mike Palmer, hey, from Prince Edward Island, little town called Summerside. I believe Summerside is like a hot summer vacation spot in PEI, is it not? But I have heard of Summerside. I have never been there. But Kelly Patterson, hey Kelly, afternoon from Roseburg, Oregon, where I have been before. Glad you could join us, Kelly. What's news for 2024 in the trucking industry? Hey, that's from Bernardo. There's Fred there. I almost missed him. Fred, how are you? Merry Christmas from Joliet, Illinois. God, which way are you going, Fred? Are you on your way out or are you on your way home? But thanks for joining us anyway. Chrome Hound, any updates on the nationwide speed limiters? Not yet, but now that you mention it, there's only 8 days before they're supposed to announce what the speed limiter is going to be set at. I myself am very curious to see where they actually set the bar. And I'm disappointed to see that the ATA trucking companies have so much influence on that decision. Apparently they're pretty much going to dictate the speed to the FMCSA from what I understand, but we'll see. Because in some of the states, Wyoming, the speed limit for trucks is 75, and if they set it, too far below that, that's not even right. You won't even be able to do the speed limit, but we'll see how that works out. Anyway. Blue Ridge Ocean. Smoking a cigar in my truck at a truck stop just outside of Dallas, Texas. I bet you the weather's nicer in Dallas than it is here. It's not bad today, actually. We've lost the snow that we got. It's below freezing, but the ground is dry anyway. But they're saying we'll still have a white Christmas here anyway. They're saying snow Christmas Day, so we'll see. It'd be nice for the kids. I hate shoveling it, but it'd be nice for the kids anyway. Adam Robinson, I live in Oklahoma, but work in Arkansas. Boy, that's a commute. I'm just kidding. I know they let you take the truck home, but I like Oklahoma. I was never a big fan of Arkansas so much, and I rarely went through there, to tell you the truth, but I did enjoy Oklahoma. Peterbilt is going to make the 589. Whoever asked for that. Yeah, I've seen the new 589 pictures. Don't care for the curved windshield. I think essentially after that it's pretty much the same, but I wish they hadn't curved that windshield. That kind of wrecked it for me. But
Heavy Haul Nick, do I sense a dislike of PA from you, Dave? Thank you very much for the 2A.
Heavy Haul, I got lost. I was only ever in Pittsburgh once in my life that I can remember, and I remember there's like a little system around and through Pittsburgh there, and I made a wrong turn, but I was still on the highway, and I came across a tunnel right on the highway that I couldn't get under. I could tell from, like, they had it marked, and it was going to be too low for me, and I ended up having to get off just before the tunnel, and weave like across the highway through a little residential section and down the ramp on the other side, and I was always scared of Pittsburgh after that happened to me. So I hadn't been expecting that low tunnel on like a subroute through Pittsburgh, but woke me up anyway. But no, other than that, I never really was comfortable in any part of Pennsylvania because I just didn't go there often enough, and I know there are some low bridges and tunnels through there, so it always worried me going there. Craig Beats, nobody panic, I'm here. Craig, thank God. we were worried. Glad you could join us, man. Realistically, the limiters should up your speed cents per mile rate. Getting low wages, having a limiter is not, that's an interesting point. They won't do that here, Stabs. but they should. You're absolutely right. They should, but they won't. But you know what? Sooner or later, the trucking population will figure that out and start to scream about it. Bonanza Transport. Thanks, Dave. Thank you, sir. Glad you could join us here. Little Trucker Bear says we're just getting rain Christmas Day. It may turn out that way here, too, as well. We'll see. SoCal Sandman. Glad you could join us, sir. Hi, everyone, he says. Green, Little Trucker Bear. Green is the goat, white is for kids. He's talking about the snow at Christmas. Yeah. I would love to get my CDL class, but work in the medical field. Adam Robinson. Yeah, that would certainly take a chunk out of your day if you're working full time and then taking classes for CDL. God, there might be almost no time left in your week, but it'd be something to work for if you really felt that you would use it, or some people just like it to have, just in case as a backup plan. But it's getting more and more difficult to get a CDL anymore these days, but just the way the government's making it go. Mike Palmer trying to move to a 2-story home along the shoreline and fall into the ice wasn't fun, but it wasn't deep. Oh, and I imagine it would be fairly cool this time of year as well. So a little bit chilly on the socks when it went down your boots. Silva 579 says if they check truck speeds the way Ontario did, it'll never work. And I think that's going to be a challenge for this new speed limiter mandate that they're bringing in. How are they going to patrol this stuff? It didn't work out in Ontario. So we'll see how the U.S. handles it. Hopefully they handle it a little better than we did up here in Canada.
Adam Bennett coming in with the $20. Good to see you in the stream today, Adam. Greetings and salutations. Waiting to get unloaded down here in Long Beach, California. Adam, thank you very much for the 20. Very generous of you. Thank you.
Hey, Adam, thank you for joining us, and congratulations on being in Long Beach. I know it's warmer there than it is here. And I kind of like going to Long Beach, not the pier so much, but down in that area. I was quite comfortable in that part of LA. Did a lot of deliveries around that area. Well, I'm supposed to be doing truck talk today, and I was thinking that this morning that it's been 39 years since they introduced the first drop nose truck into the industry. That was in 1985, and the truck was introduced by Kenworth. It was called the Anteater, and I remember it was a radical departure from anything that we had seen up until that point. The way the hood sloped down, and that was why we called it the Anteater. That was a nickname. That wasn't the factory name. That was a nickname from truck drivers. And I remember one of the guys that I was working with in the same fleet that I was, he got a new one. He'd ordered it as soon as they came in, and he let me drive his around a little bit. And the first thing I remember noticing was how damn well it turned. It was incredible. I had a long hood Kenworth at the time, and it was a really nice truck, but you needed a football field to turn it around. And this Anteater, could turn so sharp you could damn near hit your own trailer doors with it. It was maneuverable as hell. An amazing truck for maneuverability. It turned out, though, that it had its drawbacks, and they kept refining it over the years. But one of the first problems the Anteaters had was because they had tapered down the hood and tapered down the nose, it made for a smaller grill. So Anteater put in a smaller rad. So the Anteaters would get into trouble in the mountains and long, hard pulls with heavy loads. They would overheat more quickly just because the rad capacity wasn't there in the early Anteaters. And that became a problem for anyone that ran west, or anyone that pulled serious hills, or anyone that pulled serious weight. But it was the beginning of the change in truck style away from the long hood trucks to basically just about everything that we see on the highway today. It was a landmark in trucking when that Anteater came out, and then everybody looked at the Anteater, all the other truck manufacturers, and tried to duplicate or come up with their own version of the original drop nose trucks, or curb sniffers was what we call them because of the style of the hood. But that was the beginning of a big change in the industry, and it became so prevalent. So many guys, or so many fleets, wanted those drop nose trucks and were buying them as fast as everybody could produce them, that it was the beginning of the end for the Cabovers, which had been on the interstates and dominated the trucking market for years and years. Kenworth produced their last Cabover truck in 2002, and I liked Cabovers. I bemoaned that loss, but an awful lot of drivers weren't comfortable in a Cabover. They didn't feel safe in a Cabover because they were right there. There was no hood to protect them. All sorts of guys went from Cabovers to the new style drop nose trucks just so they could have some sort of crumple zone, some sort of protection from a head-on accident. Remember, a lot of trucking was done on two-lane roads, and it was those types of situations that guys were uncomfortable with the Cabovers. And generally, they phased them out in the early 2000s because nobody here wanted to drive a Cabover anymore. Guys would refuse jobs if they found out that the fleet was still running Cabovers. They would turn down the work and go look elsewhere. It was that big a thing. Now, Australia, for instance, kept the Cabovers. In fact, they started building them there. But that was something that was lost from the North American truck market. If you look at trucking today, the most dominant truck that they're producing is Freightliner, to the point that now Freightliner only really makes one truck, and it's different versions of the Cascadia. But all the Cascadias are drop nose trucks, but they've narrowed down their model lines to the point where really they don't offer anything else. They're all different versions of the Cascadia, and they can cookie cutter them out of the factory, just mass produce them very quickly. But they've turned out to be a very, very successful truck, to the point that Freightliner now has 38% of the market, and everybody else is behind them. Kenworth and Pete each have about 14-15%. International, which surprises me, still has 12%. I don't know how. You don't see them on the highway, but they're probably including, local delivery trucks. Volvo, I was surprised by this. Volvo has about 10.5% of the market. I would have thought that would have been higher. I would have put Volvo ahead of International and perhaps ahead of Kenworth and Pete. Because I see an awful lot of Volvos on the road these days. And everything else falls below that, like Max 6.5%, Western Star 2.5%. But that predominant drop nose truck has been most successfully marketed by Freightliner, and the one I drove a year or so ago, one of GP Transco's truck, was a really nice truck to drive, and trucks have come a long way. There were so many changes between what I was used to and what they produce now. SoCal, no more Coronados. No, SoCal, apparently not. Apparently they're not going to be building those anymore, or at least anywhere that I could find. They've pretty much all switched to different styles of Cascadias. But yeah, no more Coronados. And I thought Coronado was not a bad looking truck, but apparently no more. And it's all about reducing their cost of build, and you can see it. If they're only producing basically one truck, it saves them money. Freightliner should make a new Cabover. Do you remember they did make a Cabover for a while? It was called an Argosy, and I thought it was all right. I liked that truck, but they didn't stick around. I guess they didn't sell enough of them. But yes, I remember those. I'd be happy if anybody built a Cabover these days anymore. Over for North America anyway. If I had the money, I'd go to Australia just so I could drive that new K220. But for another day. Cascadia get knocked a lot, but the truth is they're pretty good trucks. Yes, they are. Detroit engines are what guys want these days, and that's how I would do it too, is put the Detroit motor in it rather than the Cummins. I think Detroit's making a superior product to Cummins these days anyway. But yeah, and look at some of the fleets that have done that, like GP Transco, for instance, has a fleet of those trucks. They have great luck with them, and they make them money, and that's the whole object of the game. Yeah, if you're looking for the most cost-effective truck, and that's where Freightliner falls. It's, cheapest to buy, cheapest to operate, and it doesn't break down. Its repair costs aren't high, unlike the Internationals, for instance. If only International get a Scania. Where did that go? V8 in their heavy specs. Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, it's Scania, I believe, that builds that 770 horse V8. That's a hell of a motor. I'd love to drive that. SoCal. Coronado, the Classic XL, and the FLD were the only freight shakers I ever liked. You did, SoCal, you didn't like the FLCs, like the long hood aluminum Freightliners from back in the 70s? Those were the only ones that I really liked. Like if I were going to buy one, if I was running, today I'd buy one of the Cascadias. But back in the day, Freightliner, I liked the Freightliner FLCs. They were a little lighter than everything else. I was hauling produce at the time back then, and the carrier that I was pulling for strongly suggested that I get rid of my Kenworth for a Freightliner just because it was about 1,000 pounds lighter. It was just that much lighter to build. It was all aluminum. The hood, my Kenworth had a fiberglass hood, and the Freightliner had an all aluminum hood. The frame rails were slightly thinner out of the factory. There was a lot of stuff that made those trucks just 1,000 pounds lighter, and sometimes that made the difference between getting a load and not getting a load. The clown Bruce Wilson sold a Freightliner Cabover. Yeah, well, there's a guy out of Canada up here named Andre Bellemere. Have you ever seen his Cabover? A big Freightliner, blue. It's a beautiful truck. He built that literally from hand, but what a gorgeous looking thing. Gypsy West, the last flat-nose International that I drove had a double bed in the back, and it was roomy enough you could party back there. Some of those big Cabovers were roomy as hell. I had a friend that had a double bunk Cabover Pete, a 352 it was. Yeah, 352. And it was huge back there. A ton of room in them. And the Kenworths were the same. Hey, GP Transco's here. Most Little Trucker Bear, most of our trucks are Cascadias, but this year we ordered some Internationals and some Kenworths as well. We're experimenting. I'll be curious to know how those experiments go. I like the Kenworths for quality build. I don't know much about the latest Internationals, so I'll be curious to get your take on those. Thanks for joining us, GP. Shortest hood in our fleet is a Pete 357. I'm not even sure I remember that model. Or is that one of the new ones, heavy haul? Doesn't ring a bell with me, but I don't know them all. But good afternoon from Iowa. Merry Christmas, Dave, Kathy, and Nick. That's from Riley. Thanks, Riley. Merry Christmas to you. Holland, I would take a Cummins over any Volvo engine any day. Mine is an ISX. SoCal, I never heard much good about the Volvo engines. I heard very few guys that would order one of those, and I don't know. Apparently they mustn't have been great. I don't know. You obviously didn't want to have one. I'd like to know. Was that just because of the reputation they had? I'm curious. Shamu, I always wonder what was your worst breakdown in your career. I really didn't suffer very much from that because I was very careful of the trucks that I spec'd, but I did lose a fuel pump one time on my 379, the truck that I've got here now. I got up in the morning in Lake Station and the thing wouldn't start, and I ended up getting it towed to CAT. I was there a couple days while they replaced the fuel pump. I guess that was the worst breakdown I ever had, but it was no big deal. I hated to pay the tow bill, but that was about the worst one I ever had, I guess. Although one time I had a brand new Kenworth in 1993, and I'd only had it, I hadn't had it 2 months, and it spit out the power divider. I was in Michigan, and I spit out the power divider, and it was a Rockwell transmission. And as it would have it, the Rockwell plant was only just down the road. So I phoned Rockwell, and I told them, I said, this truck is like 6 weeks old, and it spit out the power divider. And the guy says, well, tow it back to Detroit. And Detroit was a dump. And I said, I'm not towing it to Detroit. And he says, well, how about Kalamazoo? Or, no, it wasn't Kalamazoo. It was someplace up north. Grand Rapids, maybe it was. I said, no, I can't believe I'm sitting on your lap and you can't help me fix this truck that's under warranty and it's your transmission. He goes, yeah, give me a minute. And he puts me on hold, rummages around, calls somebody and says, there's an international dealer a couple exits down from where you are. See if you can limp it to the international dealer and they'll do the work. And that's what I did. They did it for free. I was pretty happy with Rockwell for getting me out of that situation. I was sorry it happened in the first place, but it was 3 days in the hotel. I was thinking about that the other night when I was SoCal had been 3 days in a hotel. I thought, yeah, I remember spending 3 days in Kalamazoo in a hotel. But anyway.
Well, you would think if you were sitting on the guy's lap, he'd be a little more friendly to help you out, but
that's an expression. My dad's been a diesel mechanic for over 20 years, and he says he'd get a Volvo with the D13 if he were to buy a new truck due to their more reliable emission systems. So when he's talking D13, I'm assuming you mean like a DD13, like a Detroit motor, or is the D13 also a Volvo engine? I don't know my Volvo engines. I'll admit it. Yeah, certainly SoCal's ISX has been a really good motor for him. Can't argue with that. George Wilson says, Merry Christmas to everyone. Merry Christmas, George. Thank you. Kelly Patterson, in the early 2000s, I liked Volvo's low beams. I call them deer finders. They lit up the road so much. The headlights. But they were under, Kelly, like a plastic coating that used to dull out. Is that not true? Like when I think back to the headlights back then on Volvos, I think there was a plastic case over them. But Little Trucker Bear. Bruce Wilson is not a real trucker. He just plays with real trucks thanks to Dad's money. I always wondered about that. Like I didn't understand really what that guy did for a living. Apparently they own a shop, or he owns a shop or something like that. But he's obviously got money to blow. Lots of money. He's always buying stuff. Stabs. The D12 is one of the best engines Volvo ever did. 460 horse, and was the max they came out with the factory at the time. It was a good motor. The D12 Volvo. See, I did not know my Volvo engine. So there's a good one right there from Stabs. SoCal, Cummins is closed tomorrow through Christmas. So if they don't get mine done tonight, guess what? Hopefully it'll be done. SoCal, God. And where did you say you were? Can you still get home? If not, or is it going to be a real chore? Because I remember thinking yesterday that you must be out of your lane. I forgot. I thought you kind of ran between Indianapolis and Kansas City or something like that neck of the woods. But you weren't there yesterday when you told us where you were, and I forget where you said now. But I remember thinking, what's he doing over there? Back to the Volvo headlights. Silva 579 says, after a few years, that plastic fades so much, it's like driving with a pair of candles. Now, I have heard that from Volvo guys, that the headlights would fog up after a little while. Little trucker bear. Bruce Wilson went to Sweden to play with the Scania trucks, if you can force yourself to watch it. I don't know. I want to see about the Scania trucks. I don't know if I could force myself to watch Wilson, but maybe some night I'll have a few drinks and I'll try. Blue Ridge Ocean. Internationals are cramped in the sleeper. Bad storage design. Hardly any storage room under the bunk. Don't recommend them. They pull okay with the X15 with an automatic 10-speed, though. The clutch overheats. Yeah, interesting. Internationals, man, they were such a good truck. And they have been struggling now for just like a number of years. They just don't, they got knocked back because they held on to the SCR engines too long and got fined huge for that. And they just seem to have struggled ever since. But they were a go-to truck back in the day. They built good, reliable trucks that were relatively inexpensive compared to everything else on the market. SoCal says he's sticking with the 565 horse Cummins over the 460 Volvo. SoCal, so how many miles are on your truck now? Because you're way up there. So I'm not surprised it's in the shop. You got to do that stuff sooner or later. What was the worst engine I ever had? Sadly, it was a big Cummins 3, and I had run Cummins up until my 1993 Kenworth, and I had a big Cam 3 Cummins in it, and it had issues, and it wasn't like it dropped a liner and a few other things, but what bothered me was the Cummins wouldn't stand behind the warranty. They just kind of ignored it. It was a couple days, like literally 2 or 3 days past warranty when it dropped the liner, and Cummins just shrugged their shoulders. They didn't care. They didn't want to hear about it. They weren't interested. And I thought, okay. And at that time, the Lettuce King was teasing me for having a Cummins, and it was a dog on the hills. Like it was a good truck, but I had geared it too tall for the horsepower that it produced, so it would struggle going up a big hill. And the Lettuce King had a cat, and it would just storm by me like I wasn't even in the race. And the Lettuce King was the guy that convinced me to go to cat. I went to with the next truck I bought a cat. The warranty was far superior to what Cummins was offering, and that was it. I was sold, and the motor never gave me any trouble. Any of the cats I had, I had one that had a head issue. They did it all under warranty, no questions. Cat was great for warranty, and that was a big thing for me. I am old enough to remember when International made bulletproof trucks. This is Little Trucker Bear. And the last cool truck was the 9200, 9400 series. I remember those, yeah. Wasn't it the 9200 series that had the monstrous hood out front? It was like a boardroom table. I remember seeing those. Here's SoCal. 2,788,000 miles on it now. Had an in-frame overhaul done in June of 2022. That's pretty damn impressive. SoCal, that buddy of mine with the Pete that you see, the big long Pete, Richard, he's got over 3 million miles on that cat of his now. And it's still, like he's out right now with it. He's had it in-framed a couple of times now, but he's over the 3 million mark with it. I wish someone would resurrect the Diamond T moniker. Yeah, it was cool. I was reading the other day, and I forget when it was, though, that Peterbilt came out with the oval emblem. And they had a specific date that they launched that emblem. I'll have to look that up and get back to you. But, yeah, it was something so specific to them that they were so proud of, they made a note and when they first started putting them on the trucks. What is the ugliest... Excuse me. What is the ugliest truck out there? I'm trying to think of the model International that everyone called the Batmobile. The Lone Star. Thank you. Yes, the Lone Star. I never really particularly cared for the look of that. And I think they're still making those too. I'm not sure, but I think so. Garrett Burns, I've got a 2007 9400 International with a 425 Cummins. Got 1.49 million miles, no rebuild, only injectors. That's pretty damn respectable. 1.49, so call it a million and a half with no rebuild. With the the injectors is no big deal. That's to be expected. That's pretty good. Cummins made some really good engines, but I don't know. That 400 Big Cam 3, and that was the second one of those I owned. The first one gave me no issues at all, but I must have got a lemon on that second one that I bought. Yeah, the second one, the one in my Kenworth, the 93 Kenworth. Anyway, it was a pain in the butt, and I was hauling produce. I needed reliability, and that second Big Cam 3 was a disappointment in that respect. SoCal says he did his first rebuild at 1.6 million. Jesus, that's pretty good. That my Pete that's out there in the backyard has got 1.1 million miles on it now. I've never rebuilt it. I've done the injector cups, and I've replaced the turbo and the ECM, and that's really all I've done to that motor. But it's getting time where, I worry about it. I don't know. I'd want to put it into CAT for some checkups before I started hauling long and heavy with it again. But it's been a really good motor. Z-Bear, first time I saw a Lone Star was on RT20 and saw it going west. I was going east, thought it was a train. My heart skipped a beat. Yeah, they kind of had that shape of girl that it would look like a train. I never thought of that, but yeah. SoCal, what happened to your groundhog? That's Kathy asking him. I guess I could ask. What did happen to your groundhog? Cummins to me are overpriced for what you get. Only reason they can charge what they do is because Cat bowed out of the game. I was going to do some Cummins research here over Christmas time because I've discovered that Cummins makes a Euro diesel engine that's different from the engines that we can get over here, and I'm going to try to research that to find out what the difference is, whether they're designed for stricter emissions regulations over there, or what the difference is, why, because that's got to be expensive for them to produce a different one for a different market. So anyway, I'm going to research that. I'll get back to you on that stuff. Have you ever run a C15 Assert? Yes, I have. I owned one. I owned a few of them actually for a couple years, and they were good, strong motors. And God, the ones we had got really good fuel mileage too. I liked them. Apparently, the only problem with those was if they decided to spit out the turbo, and they were a twin turbo setup. If they spit out the turbo, it could be like big time expensive, like $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 to replace the turbo if it didn't spit any fins down into the motor. So, but no, it was a good motor, got good fuel mileage, liked it. What's the deal with automated self-driving trucks? When will it happen? Not in my lifetime. They're not doing very well, so I won't see that in my lifetime. And that's allowing for the fact that they're allowed to be driverless on the road with no safety driver or no human being. I've been trying to find out how much these companies are paying these safety drivers, but I cannot find a number. And it's going to be less than they pay a professional truck driver. I'm not even sure that some of those guys have licenses, but you know what? The information on them is very scant. Bonanza Transport, silver 92 with a blower. Now there's a motor going way back. Boy, they were a popular engine though, the silver 92. And like rev, they could almost deafen you. Leak oil like a sieve, but you geared them right, they'd pull. If I had my way, I'd take a 362, put some of today's tech into it, but still have the old school 362s. Very first truck I learned to drive, I was 14. They were a great truck. Just talked to my friend who hauls for his dad's farm. He was on the ramp going on I-80. Some lady steered off the road and flew into his trailer. He sent me a video and pictures. Tuesday. It was Tuesday. Z-Bear. Nothing scares me like the four-wheelers. I can handle the bad weather. I can handle the mountains. None of that worries me. It's the four-wheelers that scare the hell out of me. I think people are too happy to justify self-driving trucks. Yeah, I could go on and on. They're not doing very well in the market anyway. Breaks my heart. Although Cummins and Scania share the XPI fuel system, Scania has used it since 2013. This is Stabs. I did not know that they shared that fuel system. Huh. And it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Stabs, but it is a rail system, is it not? A pressurized rail system? SoCal hasn't seen a black squirrel in India in 13 years. We've got one working our backyard. What's typical pay for a first-year driver? William. Honestly, William, the first-year guys don't make a whole lot. I'm going to hazard a guess and say, because the stats on it haven't changed, but it ranges between $45,000 and $47,000 a year. And as you get more experience, it progressively goes up. You know, and not that the carrier is going to pay you more every year. It's just you'll have more seat time and be able to move to a better carrier that pays better. That's how that works. But generally, the new guys are in around 45, 47,000 according to the statistics. Yeah, Stabs is common rail for that fuel system. I thought so. Yeah, they've kind of gone back to that. What was the worst truck you drove? I drove briefly. Well, I drove an old auto car that had like the butterfly hood, and it was all spring ride suspension, Camelback rear suspension, and it was a work truck, but rough as hell, and had the tube tires back then. This is years ago. Had Dayton wheels, tube tires, and it was a rough old girl. I think that's probably the worst truck I ever drove. I never trusted anyone who hates animals. Me either, SoCal. I'm with you on that. What are some of your favorite Lettuce King trucks? That is a tough call. He's had a lot of beautiful trucks, but he had one that was kind of his lettuce green, like similar to the truck he has now, but it was a flat top double bunk Pete 379, and it had like a black mask that ran from the windshield back to the bunk, and I thought that was an awesome looking truck. I think that was probably my favorite one, although I don't know, because I really like the one he's got now too. That's an incredible truck. Hard pick for me there, but he's had some awesome trucks. Builds them all himself. It's amazing. Very talented guy. Muppet, hey Muppet, glad you could join us. Has anyone ever hit a wild Mustang? God, I haven't. I'm trying to think. I got a deer one time, but he ran into the side of my fuel tank, so I didn't really nail him with the front of the truck. But that's about the only incident I ever had. But that was the deer's fault. I had the right of way. He got me in the side. Little trucker, what is his current truck supposed to be? I know it has a 351 hood and a 379 sleeper. It's technically a 351. I guess he's not here. He'll be here tomorrow. you'll have to dial in and we'll ask him that specifically. But I believe that it's a mixture of all different kinds of trucks because of how he built it. But I believe technically it's licensed as a 351. But we'll ask him that tomorrow. But Kathy and I even went for a ride in it. I don't know if some of you have seen that video. We went down to interview him after he finished building that truck, but it was pretty cool to ride in. SoCal had a Bengal cat. Are those not huge, or am I confused? They're wild. Yeah, I know they're wild, but are they not like a fair size too? Wow. We have 3 cats here. two of them are fairly big, and the other one's just normal. Guy came in for an alignment at my dad's TA, and the alignment machine wouldn't adjust anything without the axle being replaced. Dude insisted on just an alignment, but he had snapped the cast iron. Well, there's no point in aligning it if the axle's broken. But do you know back in the day there was a school of thought that if the steering axle tires didn't sit dead flat on the pavement, and some of them didn't for manufacturing, they had a machine, a huge pressing device that would bend the steering axle, and the thought of doing that just made me shudder. But there were shops around that specialized in bending the front axle, the idea being that you get longer steering axle tire life out of the deal. But man, I don't like to mess with stuff out of the factory so much, because generally the factory engineers know a whole lot more than you do. So I don't mess with factory settings or specs, but some guys that they were convinced that was the way to go back in the day, was bend the front axle. What is the dumbest thing you've seen on the road, or Bonehead truckers? Oh, you need to give me some time for that. But I guess the dumbest thing I've seen is these guys doing 60 and 70 miles an hour when they don't realize they're driving on glare ice. I can't understand how guys cannot be aware of the fact that all of a sudden they're on ice, and they'll just go like a bat out of hell until the traffic stopped in front of them, and then just slide into the back of one another. And it's just like a constant thing. You can get 30 or 40 trucks. They had one out in Wyoming on 80 a couple years ago. They all drove into a snowstorm and got it. 100 trucks, just one after the other. And that just amazes me. And how guys could drive on ice and through bad visibility in a snow cloud like that, and just do 60, 70 miles an hour, just amazes me. I guess that's the dumbest thing, and you continue to see it today. Blue Ridge Ocean, a deer ran into my trailer during the rut, chasing a doe across the road. I'm sure he had a headache afterwards. Biggest animal I killed was a raccoon, a family crossing the highway. Yeah, that happens. And there's times when it's not safe to swerve out and try to go around them. But it's tragic when it happens. Gerard, hey Dave, love your content. If you could fully restore one of your old trucks, which one would it be? Keep on trucking. Gerard, if I could fully restore, if I had the facilities and stuff to fully restore a truck, I'd get a hold of an old W900A model, a long hood old Kenworth. And I would redo one of those from start to finish. I still think to this day that they're the best looking trucks on the road. They don't turn very sharply, but I would rebuild one of those. And I'm struggling to think of the name of the guy in PA that rebuilds them. And God, he does just a masterful job. His name escapes me now, but some of his trucks are just downright gorgeous. Alejandro says, who's bending the steering axle? That is wild. Isn't that crazy? I couldn't believe it when that became a thing, but some guys will try anything. Some guys will dick with anything. Kelvin, Love your channel, brother. Been running a successful owner-operator business for a year now. Thanks for all your videos. They helped a lot. Well, thank you, Calvin, for saying so. Oh, SoCal wants to see. He's not happy to be here. And this isn't the fluffy one, the furry one. The other one has more fur than this one, but you can see he's a fair size. Goodbye. Is it Hunter Contracting that does those KWs? That's not the name I'm thinking of, Nick. They're down in Pennsylvania somewhere. Oh, their name will come. The guy's name will come to me. Keeler. Keeler's his last name, but amazing trucks. What do you think about electric trucks that we invest in, since it'll be for law soon in some states, 5 to 10 years from now? I'd hold off as long as I could before buying one, because in that 5 years, the technology will improve a whole bunch more. Right now, I don't think there's any question that Tesla is leading the market in those things, but I think another 5 years or so, and they'll make a whole lot more improvements with them. There's not just the trucks, but the cars as well. There are fire issues with these battery cars and trucks, and they need to solve that issue. That's a huge problem. So give them some time, but yeah, they gotta fix that first. Any lot lizard stories? I went out of my way to stop in truck stops that didn't have that, because I didn't want to be woken up in the middle of the night, someone banging on the door. So no, I don't. Beard-driven cooking, is that a lion? He's talking about the cat that we just put on the screen. Well, he's no lion. He's a big chicken. He's a big suck. Heavy haul, Nick. Edison. Yeah, Edison Motors out of BC. Those guys are doing amazing things. Those guys, they're in the logging industry, and they've developed a couple different electric work trucks that are awesome. I hope they go on to develop a highway truck, as if they find a market for such a thing. And there is going to be a market for there's kind of like a diesel electric thing, and man, I think there'd be a market for that on the long haul stuff. I'd love to. I was telling them too that I'd like to sneak one into California, just run on the battery in and out of California, and then fire up the diesel generator once I got back into Reno out of state. But I think there's a market for that stuff. I think those guys are going to do really well. I saw SoCal. I saw a video on electric trucks and how there's no infrastructure for them. Yeah, you can fuel your truck in about 15 minutes and charge it in about 3 hours. Which one suits you better? Yeah, that's a huge problem. And some of the charging runs a lot far longer than 3 hours. And when you get to a truck stop to fuel, you're never the first guy in line. There's always a couple guys ahead of you. So if you've got an electric truck and you're waiting for the charger, and there's a couple guys ahead of you, even if they're only 3 hours charging, you're there 9 hours before your truck gets charged. You pretty much used up your hours of service. So there are some issues with those things. SoCal got mine up to 95 miles an hour. That's moving. That's trucking. When is that? I should say this, but I had one of mine up just over 100 miles an hour in Wyoming one time, and then my friend Mike Davison rolled by me like I was standing still. He had to be doing 120, and it just made me feel stupid. I never tried to outrun anyone again after that. And the same with the Lettuce King. You just, he'd pull back the sticks and he'd be gone. I'd catch up with him in the next state when he stopped. Little trucker bear, you can only run the electric trucks for 300 miles on a good day. That's what I've heard, and I understand too that they lose range in cold weather and with a heavier load. So if you've got a heavy load on a cold day, your range is probably like 150 miles. So not too practical for over the road. All right for in town, I guess. But in Germany, they ran Scanias. Some section of highway had overhead wires, extend the wires and use the electricity off the main. I saw that on a video. And I think that's kind of a cool idea. I don't know, if they've got the existing infrastructure for those overhead cables all over the place in Europe. But yeah, that is certainly a fuel saver. That's a cool idea. Tire chips flying at 96. Yeah, that's the other thing you got to worry about when you get those trucks up really, really rolling or your tire's going to hang together. And you don't want to do it in like Arizona in the summertime when it's 120 on the pavement, because you'll just shed your tires. Does them no good at all. You wouldn't want to blow a steering axle tire at that speed. Calvin says self-driving Ubers all over San Francisco. They're having issues with those. Last time I looked, California was thinking about pulling their license for 2024 because they were having too many problems with those Uber cars, and I forget what the name of the company was, but they caused a few wrecks. One of them ran into a fire engine that was on an emergency call and put the fire engine out of commission. So there are problems. Do you have a pre-ELD engine in your truck? No, I don't. The pre-ELD emissions had to be 1999. My engine is a 2003. So no, you could, and I have had. I ran for a little while with an electronic logging device. I didn't mind it, frankly. I would just pretty much use it to my best advantage. And I had no one calling me at 3 a.m. to tell me my hours were up. And I think that's a huge disadvantage if you're working for a carrier that watches your hours of service and decide you got your hours back at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and they call the truck driver to say, hey, get up, get going. I think that's insane. I don't think that should be legal. But it all depends on the carrier and how they utilize them, I guess. They were designed as a safety tool, and these big carriers have turned them into an efficiency tool to maximize the driver's hours because they make more money when they do that. So I don't like that about the ELDs. All these people promoting electric trucks, and we get to haul all the ash from the coal-burning electric power plants with diesel trucks. Hauling donkey. Yeah, some of it doesn't make too much sense, does it? Lost my screen here. There, I got her back. I'm not the top guy with computers. What's your favorite truck color? I like the truck that I've got now, like a really, really, really dark blue, almost black. And Kathy picked out that color years ago, and we've been most of our trucks have been that color ever since. And that was back in the 80s. And her dad had a really dark blue pickup truck, and she said, do you like that color? And yeah, I did. And so the majority of the trucks that we've had since then were that dark blue. We had one purple truck that I bought secondhand. I wasn't too crazy about the color, but I knew the previous owner of the truck, so I knew it was a good truck, and that was why we bought it, to put it to work. But no, they've pretty much all been that really dark blue ever since the 80s, I guess.
SoCal, thank you very much for the 5. Actually brought up a question that I was just about to remind Dave that he should probably bring up right about now. Where is the Lettuce King today?
The Lettuce King today, what time is it now? He will just be heading home from doing his lowboy flat trailer hauling construction equipment around Toronto gig, and he'll be knocking off just about now, and he's got almost a 2-hour drive home, so he'll be coming home from work today, and then tomorrow he is joining us in the live stream. No, I'm sorry, Saturday. What day is today? Yeah, Saturday he's joining us in the live stream. So be sure you stay tuned for that. It'll be a laugh. It's always funny to have him on board. But yeah, he'll be here Saturday. So make sure everybody joins us for that.
So on Saturday we're going to be having a 2-hour stream. I believe are we starting at 4? Yep. So we'll be starting at 4 and we'll be going till 6. We might run a little later depending on how things go. We're going to have a ton of events planned. We have a wings challenge planned for those of you who have seen Hot Wings. We have some giveaways, bunch of neat stuff with the Lettuce King for Saturday. So do not miss that.
Yes, join us. It'll be a hoot. Little Trucker Bear, his favorite truck color is bright red, and that would have been my second choice. I've seen some really sharp looking trucks in bright red. I even actually liked a couple of the yellows and the greens too. So it depends on how well the truck's taken care of too. If it's if it's clean, sharp, there are a lot of different colors that look good. Red's good, yellow's good. In my book, anyway, in my humble opinion.
All right, chat. Well, it's about that time of night again, so we'll just take a few more minutes of questions here, and then we'll let Dave wrap it up with some announcements.
If there was one thing you could bring back from the old trucking days, what would it be? It would be the scheduling and the attitude. Back in the day, nobody ran like an idiot just to make some appointment time. We got there when we got there. The goal was to get it there safely in one piece. If you were going to get there Thursday, let them know. If you're going to get there Friday, just let them know. It was that easy. There was no door appointment times, and we all had time to stop at night and have dinner. We could run as much as we want or as little as we want, depending on, how good we felt. We would just run until we got tired. It was as simple as that. It was so much simpler. I would bring back that whole lifestyle. I don't know, lifestyle is not really the word I'm looking for, but the way the trucking industry operated, it was so much easier on drivers, so much more enjoyable. We didn't have phones back then that the dispatcher could get a hold of you if you had a dispatcher. It was just so much more simple and more clean and more enjoyable. And we made a lot better money back then too, especially if you owned your own equipment. So I would just bring back old style trucking from the 60s and 70s altogether, if I could change one thing.
All right, Chad, that'll do it for us today. I just want to thank everyone who came out to the chat and participated and gave their thoughts and comments. Thank you to everyone who donated today as well. Heavy Haul Nick, Adam Bennett, and SoCal. So thank you to all our donators. If you have any other announcements, Dave, now would be the time.
No, I think that's it for me. Other than be sure to subscribe or join the membership crew. Make sure you show up and join us Saturday for the Lettuce King. They've got us eating hot wings. I don't know how that'll go. I don't even like wings, but I'm going to do it for you guys. So check it out. Anyway, stay tuned, stay safe.
And just to double clarify, chat, it will be 4:00 Eastern Standard Time, 2 hours on Saturday. Make sure you don't miss it.
And one final note, SoCal, I hope you get the heck out of there so you can get home for Christmas. Hope they finish off your truck and you can get going. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. Stay safe.